Hello, humanity. There are three things that are distinct, not and non-distinct. That humanity, that nature is showing us are connected, are manifest the way they are in demonstration of its body, invisible but still discernible. Yet, to an extent, the identity of all space slash existence, that generating totally different species bodies made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we could discern it generating all differences. Those species bodies with two eyes, other quality aspects in nature, distinct from our own species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies, but also non distinct and simultaneous, but also for a further identity of distinct identity of value progression. That is us in them, but while not anyway. Well, not, but anyway, showing us, like, for example, like the parts of our body, the parts of the hair on your head, tip of your fingernail, is not your complete identity, while it is anyway. And this is so, everything is so we can discern its body of value progression. Three things that nature shows us are bound is our appreciate, how we and why we appreciate sight, even if we don't have it, discernment, even if we don't have it, and another quality of diffusion there. Everything is a quality of diffusion. But sight and discernment are two distinct, non-distinct parts, like the cell body, cell nucleus, and cell wall are three parts of a connected body as a cell, and the walls are connected, cell wall slash as. But nature also shows us that there are gases and their elements, positive or negative, to the body of the cell, in the body of life. That's a whole bunch of cells connected. And what is appreciating gases in their mixture, and water and its elements. And where and how nature is showing us its identity of where that's hyper invisible but still discernible. It's a distinct identity of relativity to it to itself, with positive and negative, the way it appreciates it as a perfect value progression, and appreciated its way here with a special difference, or Earth's a special difference forced away from here, as forced space nature transfer, as a negative identity of relationship to itself, that which is showing us that we are right about where it is about to get too hot or too cold. And we could cause that to happen. But we are only one species body of a whole bunch of species bodies that it generates. It's the only reason it took so long for humanity's dysfunction. That also nature shows us it is more probable. I'm not a lawyer. It is more probable that a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded the phenomenon of the names of the people, the sciences, and the people who could only operate the phenomenon of the names of the human species body, the names of the countries, and exceptions as locations, areas, and states. It hurt them sequentially, but to do it simultaneously, increasingly, the names of the entire species body. Got everyone to blame other things, others, or ourselves for what it did to them. And then got the people that it did that to. And the people that got them to blame, to counter them, and more, they were incapable of defending their syntax with that and their natures with that, and of affording to be, let alone to protract, without anyone realizing or fathoming that was the agenda. of making people incapable of affording to be, let alone to protract short words proper with syntax, therefore with function, and with convictions, let alone convictions with guilt, let alone convictions with guilt that the breaching method relied on and increasingly relies on, because it knew it would have to. Nature itself shows humanity A through Z, non-distinctly, distinctly, countries A through Z are hurt, people A through Z had it relative, but also sickly, non-distinctly. And the only reason no one addressed this too with colonization in the early states, everyone was sickly, distinctly hurt by a human factor nature breaching method, which is one of the things that all those laws were value as equally. They were all about different things, but they were all about that at the same time. They're about a human factor nature breaching method that employed those laws to employ roles with itself hyper. Additionally, private overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, only capable of being the countries A through Z, individual grouped and together, voicings for humanity, now incapable more of defending group differences, syntax, natures, and reporting to be, well, to protract anyone with syntax proper regarding how and why there are group differences. Now we are through systems tactibilitary from its own. This is also why and how it's important to pay attention to where and how we are forbid short words and how it is gotten away with at countries A through Z, really. And what motivated roles with this. Nature shows us that what we are appreciating is means to discern its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that equally to an extent. We're in how we are valuing what we are appreciating and why, how we appreciate sight, discernment, and a further distinct quality of diffusion that is manifest where and how nature is increasingly manifest as demonstrations to us of how it is functional, how its body of value progression is hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. And there are proofs that both the Old Testament and that the Quran were written knowing that all the names of the people, the sciences, the difference of their guilt, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the countries individually grouped, and all humanity voicings. There would be collusion /S with the breaching method, hyper additional apparent motivations too, and real ones that the breaching method propagated and needs to be real. Right where and how collusions that nobody wanted are maintained, appearing for those motivations, because it needs those motivations. Because the breaching method knew, and there are proofs that it's still operating, not as a terrorist organization, as what we should refer to as a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, worse than terrorists, worse than war crimes. And countries A through Z could blame it at the same time. In other words, and to begin to discern it, we have to discern its method. How originally and still it made modern countries beat roles with its method as methods, plural. Methods, styles, natures, needs of logic, forced both by the breaching method and by nature itself, as hyper invisible but still discernible bodies of value. So that's a valuable question here. In other words, the proverbial devil, the proverbial shaitan, is more probably about how and why. Even America's founders did not have free speech. And the only one that we know the name of They had to classify for us why and how he did not have free speech, even once he was a president / chief too. James Madison. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about George Washington, but you also don't realize because you have delusions at the same time. And the people who do realize can't afford to pretend they realize. They can't be out before to be honest about what other people say. And the breaching method knew that the only way they would get away with that is if the self-value collusion /S with predicate acts, with facts, with databases, and with the relativity of what they call data, information, and evidence. And evidence is at countries A through Z. Here, Anthony, boxing. I was attached to the fake conversations with the news while they did way more other natures of organized crime at the same time. Increasingly, they have people involved with the business. A whole bunch of people tied to a former retired police chiefs from Weathersfield and their family members and intimate ties involved with fake transcripts, attaching little kids with as time collusions with a whole bunch of other countries. They interbranch their states' offices, other natures of conjunctions to them. A breaching method showed a whole bunch of, people as the whole entire human species body, their jobs and their titles. They need to how to defend their logic, their fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. And they can't do that without leaving out exceptions, faking exceptions, valuing them being haven't been faked, valuing originally instilled what our founders communicated about why and how all that and nature's investigators could and did have collusion /S with all natures of crime scenes and with layers of foreign for there having been a hyper-foreign involved too, as is projected to us by nature itself, with the reality of what we know about how northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13, they were entrenched and they both had roles with even slavery, things that no person would want naturally, when nature is not only nature as criminal insidiousness. This is the same breaching method that was against Native Americans against Native Americans. This is the same breaching method that was entrenched not through America's founding only, where our founders wanted nothing to do with slavery. They had this declassified for us. We have other communicated for our founders. We have we are directed to understand too clearly that the only founder and why and how, the only founder name we know is James Madison. And we know why and how. Everyone had to have their actual motivations with the Constitutional Convention, with the Declaration of Independence. One of their biggest motivations, besides natural ones, to get out of that trap, that torture, extortion, slavery method. One of the motivations was the breaching method. One of the motivations is the plan of James Madison to force everyone to break the thing and then be in so much trouble with so many layers of reasons and interests that were all criminally formidable / hyper criminally formidable, worse, tactically illusions raw, have no way to defend themselves without valuing the unity forged by that, having been done at the same time. There was a sick human fact, human nature breaching method that was entrenched in northern colonies, southern colonies. Little kids know that nature itself shows us. Anyone who debates that, as they do formally, no. We're going to examine how they get away with that, what actually motivates that. Anyone tries to debate that there was a human fact, human nature, torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone entrenched, their logic, their nature of logic will have inherent to it, active to it, and progressive to it. Demonstration / S of the same thing. This is relative to why and to how manifest, originally and still. The keepers of mandated law have collusion / S with that. With criminally foreign impulse tactic delusions, wrought collusion / S cover-ups and uses of it. Use / S of anything, instance, description, name that comes before them. Sequence relativity. Used as collusion / S to hide that. And or everyone increasingly too, at the same time, self-valuing as having been. Each database known with relativity, the reaching methods use of databases. Uses of the ancient republic for which we stand in its campuses system, taken from their functions, taken from the function of pantheism as a science, not as a faith. You have people defining religion as faith only, because there are predicate acts, facts, methods reliant upon pretending they believe things. Oh, A, Boolean logic. Oh, they A, therefore B. On a mass scale, they pretend people have unnatural beliefs about religion, and they fake conversations to do it. The reason experts, I'm not a doctor. The doctors of psychiatry, they have to forge names and sequence fake transcripts. They are personally and professionally with judges and prosecutors. Victims, advocates, time collusions were done with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists. They have fact treatment, nature, predicate acts, collusions with each other. They have subject treatments and exceptions, collusion / S. Appreciate that when you notice the trend, where since the World Trade Center attack, people started using words like radical and extremism as collusion / S too, with torture syntax and with the nature of debate involved with all subject treatments, but that one too, as ones at and next to the World Trade Center spots, including the court next to it, involved with names and all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts. Those things are all faked. Everyone has things faked for them and the news at the same time. And the names involved with that have roles with names of layers of countries. All kinds of countries have collusions, like people from Russia and Ukraine as ones involved with Yukon and Storrs, Connecticut, but in West Hartford, Wethersfield, they have people with foreign and domestic military with the names Violet. And a Leahy family is involved with judges and prosecutors, all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders. Retired Wethersfield police chiefs too, collusions with them, with their intimate ties too. Increasingly with people at the corners of, since before Mazzucato Bakery was there, near the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill. A whole bunch of people were tied to the former, and he's got a daughter reportedly that's married to one of the Reno Mazzucato. I never saw him on the inside of a school I had a class at ever. In other words, they try to make a fake exception. One time real fast on Route 175 is increasingly involved with them, with people with whiting forensics and interstate state police families. There's a Fred Cruzet and people involved with Boston College reportedly, and demonstrably, and people involved with Mike Roberts, involved with foreign and domestic intelligence families, interagencies, and foreign and domestic military, and their educators have roles of more with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart for first forest. And I recorded that being forced, how they got away with it, and methods and their motivations. But they're not getting onto paper. And they have the interbranch kids involved at the same time with the principal child abuser. And the ones who were involved with that with ones years apart. And more with the schools. And it's only stayed because everyone speaks through others and they want to speak about their motivations, all that. You guys are obligated. Get onto paper. Get them off the fake conversations with me at the Weathersfield Police Station when I was a kid and now as an adult. And they pretend to do that through the news too. They have the sources of the news too involved with them, like WFSB, fake conversations with me, fake transcripts. They have roles with all kinds of natures of people, judges at the state judicial branch offices. They already were used criminally for influence, tactically, delusions, wrong. Forgiveness is because we're how we can discern roles with the breaching method. There are guilt roles too. Everyone has at the same time, and/or everyone's sensing anybody that's not collusion. That's who we could discern, where and how we could discern. How they keep separate, forced. All the communications that nature brings, that nature generates with where and how and why. Actually, we have black pupils, whites of eyes. Nature is showing us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. And nature is showing us that. It is showing us because it is showing us that it is generating other species bodies that also have eyes. Distinct, but non-distinct. These two physical parts of sight and discernment. They come also with a third hyper-invisible but still discernible part of itself. And sight and discernment themselves are just manifest where there is a quality of diffusion manifest, where every identity of volume invented is its own, but per its system, as every identity is a system, as relativity to positive, negative, and neutrality simultaneously. But it has a system that we have been tactical from. With our short words, therefore, all the grouped, all long words. Because we have been collusion /s or sensed, and anyone not, or sensed, if we try to use short words properly, by this identity the science is shared. Because all totally different species bodies share it. All things share it. Nature shows us how it is functional, how its body of value progression is hyper invisible but still discernible, distinctly from what is invisible but still discernible, as anything that we could name. In other words, like a God. Everything's nature itself shows us how it is functional. So we could sense if we are using, every American, anyone who denies it, that we're being used at, let alone Native American, that if a Native American or a regular citizen tries to not deny that we are using systems tactical ulterior for nature, like why and how we thirst and hunger is not so we could go buy some plastic bottles of water and bring it back to home designs. There are homes that were built before America's founders were even born. And again, they did not have free speech in their lifetimes. They only had the security to let us know of the name of one of them. But it was their use of his plan. And that's where we were directed by them to understand. But this breaching method showed the names of the people of American science history to self-value that being and having been kept behind their backs because they can't afford that appreciated the way nature itself and the way James Madison, our founders, communicated for us to have it appreciated. and defend simultaneously their takes on the syntax, their takes on what caused the Declaration of Independence, what caused them to pretend passions and emotions, to force entertain, want to have a nature debate about that. Inside the nature of those debates are quality aspects in nature that a breaching method uses remotely, as they are manifest as styles, incapable of defending themselves and of affording to be, let alone to protract short words proper, like regarding water and Native American rights, and why and how really it is president slash chief, and why and how really the rest of the plural founders, we don't know their names. And we better pay attention to why and how no one will even allow others to be honest about George Washington's extortion. Let alone, no, and or nor what nature communicates. You guys, any people just do or say whatever to make things pretend they're debatable, to put some fake motivations. Then even if they realize they're not, doesn't make the difference of that. You guys are using systems of difference tactical ulterior from the one that is showing us its body by showing us. It is a different identity of value progression that is generating totally different species bodies that are manifest the way they are, all of a whole bunch of individual bodies. All group differences are used to show its identity of value progression, or it demonstrating that we are using systems other than its own, with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, including manifest as criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments. Exclusions originally and still as they were. That's what, in other words. That's why they haven't gotten witch trials. What witch trials are about was the human fact, human nature, breaching method against every human difference, native difference, the black pupils, whites of eyes. The one, systems tactical ulterior from what nature communicates with that, and what our founders communicated about that. A breaching method measures and maintains self-value goals with it. Other communicated for our founders than they communicated. Experts using their knowledge of good and evil to get over on us. This is the most principled thing with American history. They want to play games with what they know because they were child abused. Please get them on paper. One name and see my other YouTube lives, please.